Hi, Thom Hartmann here with the best of the rest of science and green news. You need to know this. There's a massive methane leak in California that you may not even know about. Since mid-October, a broken pipe located 8,000 feet below ground has been leaking an estimated 50,000 kilos of methane every hour. But Governor Jerry Brown only declared a state of emergency over that leak last week. The ruptured pipe is located in Porter Ranch, California, and the well is owned and operated by the Southern California Gas Company. Despite the warnings of environmental groups about the dangers of methane and concerns about aging infrastructure, it's been over a year since that pipe was tested, and no safety mechanism had ever been installed. According to the attorney for local residents who have already suffered serious health effects, quote, the safety valve that should have been at the bottom of the well to prevent gas from migrating up is not present in the wells, end quote. In other words, just like the BP blowout in the Gulf of Mexico, SoCal Gas could have installed the proper safety mechanism to protect the public, but corporate greed stood in the way of social responsibility. And just like the Gulf spill, that company has been unable to stop this massive leak ever since because of the depth of the leak and the underlying safety concerns. Currently, that company is building a relief well to stop the blowout, but they estimate that won't be complete for months. In the meantime, surrounding residents have been evacuated, lawsuits have been filed against the company, and one of the most potent greenhouse gases continues to pour into our environment. In the words of the legendary Erin Brokovich, the enormity of the Aliso Canyon gas leak cannot be overstated. And the fact that once again corporate greed has put our nation and possibly our planet at risk cannot be ignored. In the short term, we must demand that all available resources are used to stop this leak. In the long term, we need to come together as a nation and stand up to the corporate greed that leaves us all at risk for the next disaster. According to the Environmental Working Group, there are nearly 100 chemicals used in food processing and packaging that pose a serious health risk. But the FDA is only banning 3 of these type of chemicals, which are no longer even in use. Last week, the Food and Drug Administration banned 3 grease-resistant chemicals, more than a decade after environmental and health groups started sounding the alarm. Those chemical substances have been linked to cancer, birth defects, and other illnesses, but it's been 5 years since U.S. chemical companies have stopped their production. However, as EWG President Kevin Cook explained, this is another egregious example of how all too often regulatory actions under the nation's broken chemical laws are too little and too late to protect Americans' health. That group is calling on Congress to investigate the use of perfluorinated compounds, aka PFCs, in food processing and packaging, and to intervene before more Americans are harmed by the chemicals still being used. It shouldn't take decades to ban chemicals that we know are dangerous. It's time that these broken laws are changed. Germany is known for their Autobahn highway, which famously has no speed limits. Now that nation is making headlines for a new type of superhighway that is only open to bikes. According to a recent article over at commondreams.org, the first 3-mile stretch of the RS1, a special superhighway for bikes, is officially open. When it's complete, the RS1 will stretch about 62 miles, and it will connect 10 major cities and include 4 different universities. A report from Fast Company states, quote, the RS1 will be continuous, running not just between the cities, but right through city centers. Typically, one of the biggest obstacles to getting cars off the road is providing people with another way to commute. Germany is answering that call by investing in bike lanes and in infrastructure. Couldn't we do the same thing here? Greenland is losing about 80,000 tons of ice sheet every second. According to a new research published in the journal Nature Climate Change, Greenland's melting ice sheets are disappearing much faster than scientists expected. Warmer temperatures have increased the amount of meltwater, and changes in the makeup of glaciers have made it more difficult for that meltwater to be reabsorbed. Rather than refreezing, the water that melts off of the glaciers is staying on the surface of the ice sheet, forming rivers and traveling miles downstream into the sea. That means that far more of that meltwater winds up contributing to sea level rise, and it means that Greenland's ice sheets are shrinking much faster than earlier estimates. NASA climate scientist Josh Willis explained the study, saying, the ice in Greenland is a very big, complicated beast, but every time we have a new result lately, it turns out that it's melting faster than we thought. That is not good news for Greenland, and it's not good news for our species. We better get to work changing things, changing our ways, while we still have a chance. And finally, orchids are some of the most beautiful flowers on earth, but they're not always the most sweet-smelling. In fact, a common bog orchid in the United States mimics human body odor to attract mosquitoes for pollination. Although this orchid, the Plantathera obstutata, commonly lives alongside other orchid species, they rarely interbreed. So scientists figure that they must use different pollinators to reproduce. In order to test their theory, researchers placed airtight bags over different orchid species and studied the chemical makeup of the scent that each gave off. The mosquito-attracting plants actually release some of the same chemicals found in human body odor, which lure tiger mosquitoes, which then spread the flower's pollen. They say a rose by any other name would smell as sweet, but that may not apply when we're talking about orchids that smell like BO. And that's the way it is for the week of January 11th, 2016. I'm Thom Hartmann on Science and Green News.